let's see, how about trauma or PTSD? If obviously trauma doesn't have to be a soldier in war, it can be anything, but say you have a soldier who has been through battle come in, what would you expect his QEEG to look like?
It all depends on what happened to them the first 10 years of their life. Huge difference. I tell my students this: you can't understand someone's brain unless you know whether they had early developmental trauma or not.
Mm.
So what happened? I would say the first 5 years, your brain, your hippocampus forms, and those a lot of connections are made. They're made throughout your life, and that sense of basic safety in the world, that happens when you have a parent that looks at you and feeds you, and a kid that was in an orphanage in Russia, for years and really got held. You're looking at a different brain. You're looking at a brain that doesn't develop like it should to start with. And we really don't have a database for that. Mm-hmm. So in cases of developmental trauma, we're going to usually be looking at, low frequency training to help the brain reset GABA. We're going to be looking at coherence training to help connections that didn't happen. And then just doing some of the other basic protocols depending on the QEEG. But I think for them, a QEEG is important because everyone experiences that a little different. The brain kind of breaks a little differently for everybody. So, and then you have the PTSD that you're talking about, where you have these series of trauma that you go through. And usually those are going to be more, fear responses. My brain, spent, 2 years or whatever with the theta suppressed and the beta real high. And I did it so long that now my brain's stuck there. So usually with that, you can do alpha theta training, which is it allows, when you get crossovers, it allows the brain to reprocess some of those traumatic memories. And they can, kind of like EMDR, they can focus on those events and really have good success. And then you have the complex PTSD where people have both. They had developmental trauma and they had rapes or, war events or other things that happened later in life, and you've got both. The good news is neurofeedback really does help with it. It's just not as straightforward. It's not as I had one client, I was trying to explain it to her, and she said, so it seems like it's kind of like a minefield. Like, yeah. So we're walking through the minefield. Like, we don't know where they're buried, right? You don't know what's down there. The client doesn't even know. And you're going through, and all of a sudden something blows up in front of you, and you're like, oh, okay. And so you kind of move forward with neurofeedback. And when you've got trauma and things that your amygdala is storing that are traumatic, as Vandercock says, the body keeps the score. A healthy brain those things will come up. Mm-hmm. And when they do, it can feel like a negative response to neurofeedback, but it's really not. It's a healthy brain starting to process what it needs to process, starting to get through that. And that's why with those, it's very important to have both the therapy and the neurofeedback together to help people get through that.